study that I had been reading, and the guy that put this study together, his name is Kevin Mann, M-A-N-N, and he put this together back in 2013. At least that's when he published it, and it's about the supercaps that are in the Bible. He did a pretty thorough and a very good job of studying that out. So I'm going to bring a study on that. As usual, I use a lot of other people's material. I figure, well, if God showed him something, why shouldn't I take it, you know? And I'd probably add my 2 cents to it, but I want to tell you, it's about 2 cents. My wife put a dime in on it this morning. I mean, but mine's probably about 2 cents overall. He did, like I said, he's pretty thorough. And of course, he is a King James Bible believer, which makes all the difference in the world. God will show a Bible believer something he won't show them other clowns because they don't believe him. And because of that, you know, he's going specifically with what you find in the King James Bible. John 17:17 says, "Sanctify them through thy truth, thy word is truth." And everything in the Bible, and if I ever doubted that, I don't doubt it now. Everything in the Bible has significance. Even the shape of letters has significance, and that just blows me away. But I'm finding out that that anything and everything, it's so huge of things that point to God that we just don't see right now. And but if we just believe the very book in front of us, it's amazing how these things begin to open up. I think we've just seen just the tip of the iceberg of the wealth of knowledge and things that are in the Bible. And that's why I'm always asking God, show me something, show me something. It's not that he has to. He doesn't have to. Probably if he didn't show me anything else ever again, you know, I'd probably be suffice to what I already know, at least to, preach a message. But what's the fun in that? Discovering who God is and what God's about has been the joy of my life. It's been the most important thing in my life. It's the most important thing in your life, whether you know it or not. So I like it when I come across these things, and I had contemplated doing this before, but I got to admit that this fellow spent some time in on this, and he did a good job. Like I said, I'll throw in some things, and I've got a few things here and there. But here's the one we're not going to do. Because you'll come across the capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. We are not going to be discussing that one. And the reason I say that is because it's found 6,828 times full capped. Super capped is what we're going to call that. So that one being aside, there's only 25 left. Isn't that interesting? Only 25. Now they could be one word, or they could be a cluster of words, but there's only 25 left in the entire Bible. And those 25, 11 of them are 11 that occur are references to God the Father. 11 that occur are a reference to God the Son, with 3 remaining, and they're all there. He calls them a negative cluster. 3 negative clusters that deal with the devil and the world and things like that. We'll see. When all 25 of these supercaps are read in sequence, they have their own message. They give their own story. And that's just, I would expect nothing else or nothing less from the Bible. It's something that just mind-bending, And the very first one is just mind-bending. Turn to Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. And we'll look at the first occurrence of supercaps, and that's the title, the supercaps in the King James Bible. The first occurrence of these supercaps is found in Exodus 3:14. It says, "And God said unto Moses, I am that I am." Now, I don't know too many people that can even wrap their mind around that, because the more you think about that, the more huge it gets. I am that I am. And he said, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. You know, when you say I am, that's ever present. That's also eternal. He's an ever-present, eternal God. And the thing that he says is, look, I am that I am. I'll tell you how that speaks to me. Okay, don't try to make God in your image. You have an entire book that tells you who he is and what he thinks and how he feels. Don't change a word of it. Don't try to make him socially acceptable, because he won't be. And don't try to mold him in your image because you think there's some characteristic you've got that's better than God's. Nobody is better than God in this room. Nobody's better than God in that world. When he says, I am that I am, you got to take him for what he is, because he's showing you. You have an entire book, entire Bible in front of you from this point on, telling you exactly who God is. And he's telling you, I am that I am. You tell them that I am has sent thee. I mean, what a statement. You know, you can say, well, it's awful simple. It is till you think about it. Then it becomes huge. And we'll get to that in just a second. But he says, so he says that the SUPERCAPS here is, I am that I am, I am. There's 7 words in that. 7's the number of completeness in the Bible. And there are 7 words in that. Now here's the thing. I am is repeated 3 times. Listen, if God's telling you who he is he going to expose the Trinity here? Is he going to hint the Trinity? Well, of course he is. I am is found 3 times. I am that I am, there's twice, and then I am, there's 3, right? Not only that, but there's only 3 words that are used in the entire statement. I am and that. I am that. I don't know. I am that I am, I am. 3 words, and there's only 3 letters that are used in I am. And it's in the 3rd chapter of Exodus. Now I thought I had, you know, now this is what the guy had. He had all this in his workup. And I thought I was done with it. And my wife pipes up and says, well, what about? And she said, Exodus 3:14, that's pi. And I said, I'm going to have to look up and find out what pi is about. Pi is the ratio. Pi is a, what would you call it? Is it a formula? It's a constant. In fact, it's a constant, but it's an irrational number, what they call an irrational number, because it cannot be expressed. I am that I am. You can't express that. Yes. It never ends, and it never repeats. It's the ratio of a circle circumference, and then now we're talking about a circle. When God says, I am that I am, and it's eternal, the only way we know how to draw something like that is a circle. Now, even the thing for infinity is just a figure 8, but it's still in the form of something that's circular. And here you have 3.14. Now you say, but Brother Mike, throughout the entire Bible, there's going to be a chapter 3:14. But a chapter 3:14 that says, tell them that I am, and tell them I am has sent thee. And that happens to be pi? Just by chance? Come on. I thought that was pretty good. Now, he didn't have that in his notes, and my wife came up with that. I wish I'd have come up with it, but I didn't. But if you've ever seen, they even have a day for pi, don't they, Pi Day? When I worked in a laboratory, it was a big day, you know, and I'm just like, oh, well, you know. Little did I know. You know, there are some things, we talked about the prime numbers in mathematics and things like that, and I am telling you that this creation declares the glory of God. Some Christians have just got bent the other way because they can't understand anything in mathematics and science, that somehow that is anti-God. Well, it's not. Not the real thing. Evolution is, but that's a fairy tale. But when you're talking about mathematics and you're talking about science where it is proven and it's reproducible and it's observable, I can promise you it will speak of him. Every time. It has to. He created it. How could it not? Doesn't make any sense. And yet, you know, science falsely so-called, science falsely so-called. But it is science falsely so-called. It's not real science. It's not observable. What's observable measures up with the Bible 100%. Why? God created the thing. It just makes sense. Anyway, so whenever we see something like that, I don't, you know, that pi thing right there, oh, that's good as gold to me. Why? Because mathematics will speak of him, engineering will speak of him, medicine will declare him, everything in this creation will declare him in one way or the other. We're just not seeing it. But it's obvious, it's kind of amazing when you're going through the Bible, all of a sudden you start seeing these things. And you start thinking, wow. I don't know if you remember the prime number thing, but man, that blew me away. That blew me away. Because of the significance of 2 and 3 being the only two primes that are back to back, and we're talking about an infinity. And that 1 is not a prime. 1 is the absolute number. Without 1, you have nothing. Without God, you have nothing. Anyway, we'll go on. Now this I am, of course, he says, I am that I am. You think this is going to bleed forward? Oh, absolutely. This thing goes forward in time, especially in the Gospel of John. Now, the Gospel of John is declaring Jesus Christ as what? The Word, yeah, God. So 3 times you have the I am identified on 3 occasions. All right, look at John 4:26. Look at a few of these. Now, I've broken some of this down that he's given and maybe added a few things to it, and I'm doing everything in a different order than he did it. I'll show you that. Here's the whole thing. Here's the whole study right here. It is 10 pages front and back, or 5 pages front and back. That's the whole study. And it's well spaced, so anyway. In John 4:26, Jesus saith unto her, I that speak unto thee, or I that speak unto thee am he. Notice that the he is in italics. I that speak unto thee am. So, that's the reason why they add words, because it needs to make sense in English. It needs to flow in English. But you have an I am is what you have. Look at John 8:58. And he's talking about, when he says that to the woman at the well, he's talking about being the Messiah. In John 8:58, Jesus said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, before Abraham was, I am. Didn't say I was, like I was present back there, or I was before, but he said, I am. And what did they do? They pick up stones to throw at him, to rock him to death, because they knew exactly what he was saying when he said, I am. Now look at John 18. John 18, and look at starting at verse 6. We're going to find it a couple times here. As soon then as he had said unto them, I am he, notice that he is in italics again, they went backward and fell to the ground. I think that's so interesting, man. I am. Next thing you know, they're falling backwards. Then asked he them again, whom seek ye? They said, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus said, I've told you that I am he. If therefore ye seek me, let these go their way. So you have three times, at least 3 times, where he identifies himself as the I am. And then to his disciples, he gives 7 statements about the I am, all found in the Gospel of John. We'll look at these real quick. John 6:35. John 6:35, he says in that passage, I am the bread of life. Think of it as I am. What? I am the bread of life. And then in 8:12, he said, I am. He said, I am the light of the world. That's in 8:12. In John 10:7, he says, I am. He said, I am the door. John 10:11, he says, I am. He says, I am the good shepherd. John 11:25. John 11:25, he says, I am the resurrection. John 14:6. John 14, verse 6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am. And then John 15:1, he says, I am the true vine. John 15:1. So you have 7 statements about the I am of the Gospel of John. You have 7 times it's identified, or 3 times it's identified. Then we go to the end of the book of Revelation, and we have 3 times the I am shows up in Revelation chapter 1, which we are studying right now. Now I realize these aren't capped, but they're all connected to that super cap. Revelation 1:8, he says, I am Alpha and Omega. He says in verse 17, chapter 1, verse 17, he says, I am the first and the last. And in Revelation 1:18, he says, I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. And of course, you have the Trinity mentioned there, liveth and was dead, and behold, him alive. You have the Trinity is seen in verse 17 and verse 18. So you have 3 times I am shows up in Revelation chapter 1. Yep. 4 times? Well, yeah, 4 times because it's twice in that verse, but 3 passages. You got another passage? Didn't I mention 111? Is it in 111? Oh, okay, it says it again, I am Alpha and Omega. 1:8, let me look over here. Did I miss it? 1:8, 1:11. Oh, yep, okay. Yeah, there he combines the 2 together. I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. Okay, thank you for that. Write that down. So 4 times in Revelation. Now here's the thing when he says, I'm Alpha and Omega. I'm the first and I'm the last. So would there be a connection between the first SUPERCAPS and the last SUPERCAPS? Since he is the first and the last, the Alpha and the Omega. Sure enough, not only do you have in Exodus 3:14, I am that I am 7 words, but the last SUPERCAPS in the Bible is Revelation 19:16. And it too is 7 words. Revelation 19:16, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Now all you got to do is put it together. I am that I am King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That's God stating who I am. Who are you? I am that I am King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And that's where this thing ends, man, in Revelation. What? God says he's sovereign, free will or not. God is sovereign. He says, I am King of Kings and Lord of Lords. I like that, man. Yeah. 1:1. That's good. Now this is something that I just looked this start counting everything. I can't help it after you start seeing some of this. But there are 25 instances of supercaps in the King James Bible outside of the Lord. There are 25 instances. And there are 25 letters in the last cluster of supercaps. I don't know. I don't know if that means something. Since it's finishing it up. But let's look at that's the first occurrence. We're talking about the first occurrence. Let's talk about the second occurrence of supercaps in the King James Bible. Look at Exodus chapter 6, verse 3. Exodus 6, 3. He says there in Exodus 6, 3, and I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob by the name of God Almighty. I'm sorry. Let me read this. And I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob by the name of God Almighty, but by my name Jehovah. Okay, I'm sorry. Just didn't read the rest of it. He says, but by my name Jehovah was I not known to them. In other words, he's telling them, look, I'm God Almighty, but they didn't have a name to associate with that, but now they do. I believe it's the first time you find the word Jehovah, especially in a King James Bible. Jehovah has 7 letters, showing God is complete and all sufficient. It has 3 syllables. Okay, Jehovah, 3 syllables to it. Even the verse number 6 and 3, verse 3. But 6 and 3 is 9, which is a triad of trinities. You can kind of look at it. You can get bogged down to this to where, somebody that's really into math could take this thing and pretty much go nuts with it if you're not careful. But I just see simple stuff, and but it's when you add the first and second supercap clusters together. When he says, I am that I am Jehovah. I mean, that's the first 2 supercaps in the Bible, clusters of supercap. I am that I am Jehovah. Man, I'll tell you. Now, Jehovah is found, now this is where the New World Translation came in, where they said, well, it should be Jehovah wherever you find the capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. Well, God chose that it should only be in there 4 times. 4 times. Remember, the Lord is his name. That's also the Lord's name. Jehovah is his name, but Jehovah is found 4 times in the King James Bible. It is supercapped all 4 times. Let me show you where that at. Exodus 6:3, where we're at. Look at Psalm 83:18. Now, I don't know what else we would find or figure out by reading these verses. I haven't given them much thought if they say anything different from one another, or they expose something that we haven't seen. It might. Psalm 83:18 says, that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Jehovah, art the most high over all the earth. Okay? And then Isaiah 12:2, turn there. This thing about Yahweh, which is not. If you look at Jehovah, the letters, what is it? JHVH, okay? That's not Yahweh. Here's what these fools say to me. Well, there's no sound of J in the Hebrew language. This is English. It's not Hebrew. I mean, you may call him Yahashua or whatever you want to call him. But in English, it's translated Jesus, Jehovah, Joshua, James, Jacob. If I was reading it in Hebrew, I'd say, yeah. But this is English. And this happens to be the absolute that God said, that's the language I want it in. That's the universal language. That's perfect. And it's got the J sound. We'll leave it at that. But changing everything to Yahweh, you know, are you gonna tell me that every word you say in English you're going to get rid of the J sound? Yeah. Huh? Yeah. And Job. You need to go get a Job. Because you need to work for a living. Get a Job, will you? You know, it's stupid. Absolutely stupid. People get caught up, you know, like it's like the word for love, you know. Is it philo or agape? Or, you know, like looking at them like, what? You know the differences in certain levels of love, but what they find out is that when you take the Greek word and look at all the different places that it's in, it's so intermixed you can't tell the difference between them. Christians let things throw them, you know. It's not the judgment seat of Christ, it's the bema seat. Okay. Judgment. Yeah. Welcome to the judgment seat of Christ. What? Bema seat. Anything but what's in front of you. Anything but what's in the Bible. His name's Jehovah. Isaiah, did I say Isaiah 12:2? Behold, God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. For the Lord Jehovah is my strength, my song. He also has become my salvation. That's a very interesting verse because that's what Jesus means. Jehovah saves, or Jehovah is salvation. And you've got a verse there telling you that. Isaiah 26:4. Trust ye in the Lord forever, for in the Lord Jehovah is everlasting strength. So those are the only 4 times in the King James Bible where you find the word Jehovah, and it's supercapped all 4 times. He does talk about that one there in Psalm 83:18. We read that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Jehovah, art the most high over all the earth. Usually the number 4, there's a lot of times it's connected with the things of the earth, 4 directions and, you know, north, south, east, and west, and 4 corners of the earth. And there's a lot of 4s in there. I'm not saying it's, you know, it's specifically just to that maybe, but there seems to be a lot of 4s that are connected with that. And of course in that verse he talks about Jehovah. He says, art the most high over all the earth. And it's found 4 times. Interesting. All right, let's look at the third occurrence of the supercaps in the King James Bible. Look at Exodus 28:36. Now this is going to get a little, I'm not sure what. Not wild, but just I'm not sure how to explain it. Exodus 28:36. And thou shalt make a plate of pure gold, and grave upon it like the engraving of a signet. Is that how you pronounce that word, signet? Okay, thought somebody might know if I'm saying it wrong. And notice it here in the caps, holiness to the Lord. Now, this was the inscription on the golden crown of the high priest. So when God had chosen a high priest, this crown was put on them, and that's what it said, holiness to the Lord on this crown. This golden crown has been made by Israel, is in existence, which they will crown Jesus Christ with when he returns. I assume it'll be that crown. It might be a different one in case they put that one on the Antichrist, but let me show you Exodus 29. Exodus 29, and look at verse 5. It says, thou shalt take the garments and put upon Aaron the coat and the robe of the ephod and the ephod and the breastplate and gird him with the curious girdle of the ephod, and thou shalt put the mitre upon his head, and put the holy crown upon the mitre. So that's his hat. So you put the crown on top of the hat. And thou shalt take the anointing oil and pour it upon his head and anoint him. You see that? Well, look at Daniel 9:24. This is where that happens, or where it says it's going to happen. Since Jesus Christ is the high priest of our religion, of our belief, Daniel 9:24, 70 weeks determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. None of those have happened in that verse because they're all related to Israel. You can spiritually try to apply some of that to a Christian. I mean, you can, but none of this has happened to Israel. Not one of them in that whole list. Every one of them will come to pass. And one of the things they're going to do is they're going to anoint him most holy. They're going to put that high priest crown on his head. And it says holiness to the Lord. Now that thing is found twice. Actually, it's found 3 times. And this, I don't quite understand this. 3 times, they're not identical. 2 of them are identical, and 1 of them is a slight different. Here's where they are. Exodus 39:30, where we just read, and then the next one is Zechariah. Exodus 28:36 is where we just were. Exodus 39:30, turn there. And this is an additional passage that has to do with that crown. Exodus 39:30. And they made the plate of the holy crown of pure gold and wrote upon it a writing like to the engravings of a signet, holiness to the Lord. Okay, it's just a companion verse to the one we read in Exodus 28. But then the next time something shows up that's closest, that's all caps, is Zechariah 14:20. Zechariah 14:20. But it's got nothing to do with the crown. In fact, this is talking about the reins of a horse, or upon the bells. Zechariah 14:20, in that day shall there be upon the bells of the horses. And then it says, holiness unto the Lord. The other two said, holiness to the Lord. Is there a difference? Yes, there's a difference. Could it mean something different? It could. It said, holiness unto the Lord, and the pots of the Lord's house shall be like the bowls before the altar. It's talking about everything being holy and set apart, set aside for the Lord. Every utensil in that temple was considered holy. Things can be holy to God. There can be ground under your feet that can be holy. But it's always connected to Him. You could say this church is holy in that it is given to God. The chairs can be holy because they belong to God. Okay? Now there's nothing spiritual about the chairs, but they have a connection to the Lord. Why? This is His building, His chairs, His church, His people, right? But the only thing is that holiness to the Lord is found 3 times. And holiness unto the Lord is found 3 times. Yet, holiness to the Lord, only 2 times is it capped, and 1 time it is not. And holiness unto the Lord is capped 1 time, and 2 times it's not. See how studious I am? He didn't give me that. I dug out that patch of weeds all by myself. Now I'm going to throw it at you. See if you can mow around this thing here. Let's see. Look at Isaiah 23:18. Let's look at the one, holiness to the Lord, that's not capped. And there's something interesting in the verse. I don't know. I don't know. The first two times that it's supercapped, it relates to the crown that's going to be put on Jesus Christ. Remember, Aaron, you know it talks about Aaron and his sons, Aaron and his sons, Aaron and his sons. Aaron's a type of Christ. And we're his sons, right? And they put this crown on him. It says, holiness unto the Lord. But in Isaiah 23:18, it ain't about a crown. It's about merchandise. It says, and her merchandise and her hire shall be holiness to the Lord. It shall not be treasured nor laid up, for her merchandise shall be for them that dwell before the Lord to eat sufficiently and for durable clothing. Now, the only thing I can think of here is the only reason it's not supercapped is because it is merchandise. Does he not say you cannot serve God and mammon? Material things? I don't know. But that's the only 3 times that phrase is used in the Bible, and once it's not capped, not supercapped. And there's a reason. There's always a reason. But he's not talking about a crown that sits on Jesus Christ. He's talking about merchandise and durable goods, I guess, or maybe non-durable goods. But he talks about them eating and durable clothing. So supplies. And maybe he just doesn't want to put that kind of, he says that's not worthy of supercaps. That's not worthy of supercaps. And then the holiness unto the Lord is found identically 3 times, except that 2 of those accounts are not supercapped. Look at Jeremiah 2:3. And I think we can kind of see how this one might not be supercapped. Is that okay if I use that instead of not supercapitalization, or I just supercap, makes it simpler. Jeremiah 2:3, Israel, what does it say? Was holiness unto the Lord, and the first fruits of his increase. All that devour him shall offend, evil shall come upon them, saith the Lord. Keep your hand off that Jew. Even when he's not pleasing God, keep your hand off that Jew. Keep your hand off that nation. I think there's folks figuring that out, but boy, it's always too late because they put their hand against them. But he said there, Israel was holiness unto the Lord. Now, Zechariah 14:20, we've already read that one. That's where it's on the bells of the horses. Holiness unto the Lord. And it says, and the pots in the Lord's house. It's all connected with the temple, evidently. All right, Zechariah 14:21, which is the next verse. And it says, yea, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah shall be holiness unto the Lord of hosts. And all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them and seethe therein, and in that day there shall be no more the Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts. I believe that is that the last word in Zechariah? The last verse in Zechariah? It is, isn't it? Which goes to show you that when God makes up his mind about something, he carries it through, even through the millennium. Chew on that one a while. But he says, holiness unto the Lord. And I don't know why it's not supercapped, but it's not. Anybody got an idea? Just by looking at it? Maybe something jumps out? I don't know. Okay? And that's where I end this study. Right here. Because I don't know what else to do with it. We will continue. What we end up doing is we're not going to go through all these one by one. There's some of them that are repeats. We will take groups of them. I believe he broke them down into groups. We'll do that. We'll look at, some interesting things start coming to pass once you hit the New Testament too, with the supercaps. But anyway, this might take me 1 more week, might take me 2. I don't think it'll be beyond that. It may only take me 1 more week. But I'm going to throw some things up at you that I see, but maybe some things that he sees that we really can't explain. God always does something for a reason. And if you can figure it out, that would be great. So be looking at these things, and if you see something, raise your hand and let us know. Okay. Actually quitting on time or just about on time. Anybody got a question about what we covered? Yeah. I'm sorry? He has a whole book.